This is a story that Ian wanted to speak about, but he can only go for about an hour before the pain. Unfortunately, I had to take him home. He has to rest now, but we thank Ian for even being on the podcast for an hour. Hopefully in the future he can continue doing at least that, but can't make any promises. I can't really push him too much. But that said, this is a topic he wanted to talk about. Fan alters code to newly discovered Super Nintendo game, refuses to share the original code. This was a game, a platformer named Quik the Thunder Rabbit. So, the real Phoenix of Assembler Games forums got his hands on the ROM for this game, Quik, almost like Nestle Quik, Quik. And it was an unreleased Super Nintendo remake of an Amiga title. It goes from platforming to auto-scrolling shooter to a fighting game. There's screenshots on here that are very interesting because you see on the left side of the screenshot, it's just a regular platformer, like any other 150, 200 Super Nintendo platformers that were out. But then there's a pretty sophisticated looking fighting game it turns into. This is bizarre on its surface. I really have to check this game out at some point. So, what's interesting to this though is that the person on the Assembler Games forum, the real Phoenix, decided to not release the unedited ROM, but put up an altered ROM. This is problematic, and I'm not saying this is the end of the world, but you have to have the unedited ROMs available because that's the actual history. Once you start making changes, for example, putting on a title screen that was not present on the original ROM, even if you think that adds to the experience, you're altering the game's history. You're altering what was actually done in the development and publishing cycle of that game. So while you might think, okay, this is better for people that are actually playing the game, if you want to do that, you should at least put out the original as well, just in case. That's just my opinion, but for preservationists, that would be like, okay, maybe the Gettysburg Address, that Lincoln scrolled down, maybe there was a comma he forgot to put in or a period was out of place. And so, all right, I found the original document. I'm just going to ink in that period for you. Whoa, wait a second. That wasn't what the original document was. It might be more grammatically correct or look better now, but what about that original one for posterity? You know, for all time, now you have this version that's not what originally Lincoln wrote down. For the same thing for game development, you want the original one. Not saying you can't have an altered one as well, but I don't see a reason not to have the original one available. I just don't. The real Phoenix said the integrity of the ROM is good. There are alterations, but they are harmless. That's not the point. It's not the point. The original ROM is important to have. According to Kotaku, one of the most extreme cases, NES title Hoppin' Mad's unfinished demo was released after a hacker added in additional features. The edited ROM is the only publicly accessible version of that game. I think with that one, a big reason why with Hoppin' Mad was because they wanted to put out a homebrew that you can buy and spend, whatever, 50, 60 bucks on. So that was the main goal there, I think, was not preservation. It was just, let's make money off of this. So when it's that blatant, I can understand the reasoning, which is shitty for not putting out the original ROM. You want to make a commercial product. In this case, though, this person seems like they feel like they're doing something for the bettering of the game in the community, but it's not though. It's sort of a half measure of game preservation as far as I'm concerned. Game historian Frank Cifaldi explains that there are many reasons that the leaked game data might be changed. Enthusiastic hobbyists can be grabbed by the urge to quote-unquote fix things they believe are broken. He said, editing Hoppin' Man wasn't a malicious act, Cifaldi said. The idea was to create a fun product for NES collectors to buy and play. Yes, what I said. They were interested in people spending money versus game preservation. You may not think it's malicious. I still think it's awful for game preservation. Alterations can be made for less altruistic purposes. Investors or collectors might want to keep a very rare commodity to themselves. Cifaldi even claims that a group of ROM enthusiasts in Japan will watermark games and alter code so they can determine who leaks a file if a game previously kept within their small circles somehow makes it to the wider public. Oh, that's pretty disgusting. ROM enthusiasts that want to hold on to game history for themselves without sharing it. Woo, that's kind of dirty. Now I can see why Ian really wanted to talk about this. It's a terrible practice, Cifaldi said. If people aren't acting as watchdogs and documenting when things have been changed, people are literally rewriting history, like I said. The public ROM for Quik the Thunder Rabbit is playable and should satisfy the curiosity of amateur historians, blah, blah. So check out the game. I'm hoping that he comes to his senses at some point. Someone in the comments says, his game, his decision. He doesn't owe preservationists anything. But it's not his game. It's not his decision. He owns the physical cartridge that the copyrighted game therein is entombed. He doesn't own that game. People have a hard time wrapping their minds around that concept. Just because you own the physical cartridge of something like Demon Sword, I don't own the game Demon Sword. I own a cartridge and the license to play Demon Sword on here. I can't do whatever I want with the software of Demon Sword. That's illegal. That's copyright infringement. And you can say, well, Pat, he's sharing the game, that's copyright infringement. Well, I'd rather you then copyright infringe versus preservation or the game not being available anywhere versus either making money on it solely or keeping it in a small circle of ROM enthusiasts. First time I ever heard that, that's kind of disturbing. Someone commented on the integrity of the ROM being good. There are real alterations, but they are harmless. This person commented, UI 2.0, that's such an oxymoron. The integrity is lost the moment alterations are made since it's no longer in its original form. That's correct, unless he keeps an unedited version of that ROM, so you actually can go back and see what was the original version. So we'll see how this plays out. And this is something to worry about more and more, not just because of the ROMs that already exist out there, but when these stories come out, more and more people either think they can capitalize on selling ROMs that have been altered to the public, or they think that they can take these games that don't exist and hold on to them for an insane amount of money because they think they're the ones that legally own the quote-unquote art or game held within their prototype cartridge, which isn't really true. But it's very rare for these companies that actually own the games to go back out after these guys that own these. There was that Super Nintendo game for the Shadowhawk. The guy went after them for that, but that was more about trademark infringement versus the copyright. That's really the only one off the top of my head where that happened.